Hey, welcome back to the Chili Pepper Garden. It is Monday, September 8th, and today we're going to go over what to do if you're getting a bunch of flowers on your pepper plant, but you're not getting many peppers. There's been a lot of talk in the social media world about there not being enough pollinators out anymore and all this, and just like anything else, there's studies on both sides. There's studies that are saying that there is no issue. Personally, I'm seeing quite a few bees in my garden. I'm not disappointed at all. But even with a lot of bees, when you have a ton of pepper plants like I do, or like some of you do, sometimes those bees can't get to all those flowers and can't pollinate all those flowers. So first, I want to go through what to do to just manually pollinate your flowers and get a whole bunch more peppers. Then what I want to do is cover just the basic ways on how to cross-pollinate peppers. So if you want to start creating your peppers down the road, I know everybody talks about it. Trust me, there's a bunch of rabbit holes you can go down on that topic. But I'm just going to show you the basic way, so if you want to play around in your backyard garden. I'm not a scientist, I'm a backyard gardener, but I've done it for years and it works. I want to show you what I do to help those pollinators help me. Then let's take it a step further, and I want to show you just the basics on how to cross-pollinate a couple peppers, and we'll do a couple here today. So stick with me, and when we're done, you're going to know how to manually pollinate your peppers and cross-pollinate those peppers. Okay, let's start over here at my Nature's Surprise. These seeds came from my Scotch bonnet plant last year that were actually over in the big one where the habaneras are this year. And the only thing I can think of that was close to them that looks like this, I think it may have crossed with a jalapeno. Sometimes I think it might have been a cayenne. But I planted out all my Scotch bonnet peppers, and sure enough, this one is different. And that happens, and that's really cool when nature does it. Now you'll see that this one doesn't have any issues with the pollinators getting in there and pollinating the flowers, but this one is in a very small pot because I'm growing it out for the seeds to plant again. And if you don't know, just because nature crosses two plants and one cross pops up in your backyard, that doesn't mean that you are ready to announce to everybody that you have a whole new strain. You have to go through multiple successions. They most say 7, but you have to go through planting that seed, getting that pepper, taking the seed, planting that seed, and you got to do that about 7 times before it's actually considered stable. You can absolutely do it with a Q-tip. People do it with Q-tips all the time. I personally don't like that method. It's a little hard to get in around the edges of some of the small flowers, so I switched over to the electric toothbrush. This one was like $6 at Walmart. I bought it years ago. I don't even think I've changed the battery in this thing. If you can hear that, it's really high, like that ultrasonic, I think is what they call it. It moves so fast. It vibrates like crazy. That vibration is what we need to happen to pollinate these flowers. Let me show you. So it's really easy. Don't overthink this. All you're going to do is take your Q-tip or your electric toothbrush, and you're just going to touch that flower, and we're going to see if it's far along, you'll actually see the pollen come out of the flower. But you're just going to vibrate that flower, and all you're doing is making that pollen fall down. And we're going to go around and do it to all the different flowers. And all you're doing is what the bee's doing, what your pollinators are doing when they're out there. If it's in good focus, you can see on this one that you have a little pepper formed. You'll see it close up. The little pepper will come out of the center there. Now you can absolutely use a Q-tip, and all you're going to do is rub around in there, go around the edges. And I'll put up a little graphic here that I pull off the internet to make it a little easier for you to see. But that's also how you can cross-pollinate. I just put pollen on this Q-tip. I can take it over to another plant, do the same thing, and transfer the pollen from this plant onto another one. And that's how you cross-pollinate. But what I like better than a Q-tip is just run to the dollar store, hobby store, Walmart, whatever, buy yourself a pack of these little artist paintbrushes. Okay, let's sacrifice this one for science. So if we pull these petals off, so there's a little stem, let me turn it this way. So there's a little, what I'm going to call a stem sticking out of there. That's the stigma. That little white filament almost looks like fishing line sticking out of the end. And then all around the edges here, you have the stamens. And that's where you're collecting your pollen from, is all around these edges. And then all you're doing is putting it on that stigma. And that's how a pepper plant pollinates. And that's all a bee's doing. When a bee's working around in there, they're collecting the pollen, but they're getting the pollen all over themselves, which in turn is transferring it onto that stigma. Or it's getting all that pollen on it, it's flying to a different plant, putting the pollen on that plant's stigma, which then in turn takes the genetics from this plant and crosses them, cross-pollinate, and creates a new species in many ways. There's an important myth I want to talk about right now. You hear it on the internet all the time. The story that drives me absolutely nuts, and I've heard it from so many people, is my grandpa planted tomatoes next to a super hot pepper and got hot tomatoes. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. That's not how it works. Urban legends, myths, whatever you want to call it. Also on that note is, it doesn't affect this year's plants. When they cross-pollinate, it's the seed. The cross-pollination, it grows the pepper. You have to take the pepper, take the seeds out, and grow it next year. And that's how you end up with a cross, like I did on this one. I'll show you. You see that orange pepper right there and right there? Now, the weird part is now they're getting longer. They were short and fat, kind of looking like more like a jalapeno. But every once in a while, I'm getting one like this that kind of looks like a cayenne. So I don't know if it crossed a Scotch bonnet with a cayenne or a Scotch bonnet with a jalapeno. And unfortunately, I'm not gonna know. But last year, I picked all my Scotch bonnets, took the seeds out of them, planted a whole tray of them. And this one, out of all of them, came out different. The rest of the seeds still look like Scotch bonnets like they were supposed to. They weren't isolated. So again, there's multiple ways to do this, but the easiest way that I've found is go on Amazon and get you some of these little net bags. I don't even know what they're called. Hang on, let me look. These are actually called white sachet bags. I'll zoom in on this and give you a chance to see. Plus, if I remember, I'll link it down below. Cross-pollination occurs when this flower is left open to whatever, and a pollinator or air or you or whoever brings pollen from another plant to this plant. They cross, and you end up with something totally different. Now, the way we just talked about it on here with the electric toothbrushing, you're actually keeping that the exact same way. You're dropping this plant's, because it has the male and the female parts inside that flower, you're dropping this plant's pollen onto its own stigma. You're keeping this plant true to what it was. So now let's talk more about cross-pollination. I'm going to jump ahead and just show you right away. If you want to create your own pepper, you want to create your own species, whatever it is, you really, if this was the plant you want to pollinate, which it's not in my case, you really want to find that flower when it just starts but it hasn't opened up yet, and then you want to isolate it so when it opens, if you're not here and ready, the pollinators don't get in there and do their job first. That's where these bags, now this bag's a little bit big for this one, but that's where these bags come in. You want to find a way to get up over, see, that one's not even long enough, but you work that thing into the bag, and then with these bags you have this drawstring. So you pull the drawstring, tie it. Now the pollinator can't get to that when it opens, but what we want to do is once it opens, we go to whatever plant we want to cross with this one, we gather the pollen the same way we just did, which we'll go do, and we bring it to this plant and place the pollen on the stigma of this flower. Then you're going to want to keep it in the bag until you see that pepper form. So let's go over to my giant plants, because that's one that I want to do a little cross-pollinating experiment with, and I'll show you how we do it. Okay, so we're over here at one of my primatali plants, and we have a flower that just opened up. So all I'm going to do is take this Q-tip and get in here and rub around the edges, and you want to use a fresh, clean Q-tip on every plant. Then you bring that Q-tip over to the plant that you want to cross-pollinate with, and you pick the right flower. Ideally, what I do is I look around for a flower that I think just opened, and I also want to find a flower that's kind of protected, because when I put that bag over it, you don't want the weight of that bag pulling the flower off of the plant. Okay, I see one over here. This flower looks like it just opened. So what I'm going to do now is just brush the end of that Q-tip right on that stamen, the little stick that sticks out the center. Then we'll place the bag over it to protect it. Now the cool thing about this one is I've only got one flower here. So just to make it easy, I'm going to pinch the big part of that off. Then the bag will fit over the entire thing, and we won't have to worry about the bag falling off as easily or hurting that flower. So I'm going to go over the whole thing, tighten it up, and then don't forget to label it, because I forget all the time. And now it's a waiting game. You want to wait and see if a pepper forms out of that plant. And if it does, here's what you're going to see. See that little guy right there? It just formed the exact same way I just showed you. This is what you're going to see inside that little net that I just placed on the Dorset Naga. And once you see that little pepper, you can take the net off if you want to. You can leave it on if you want to too. It really doesn't matter. But the pepper has already started. You let that thing go to maturity, ripen up, you take that pepper, you remove the seeds, dry them out, and you plant those seeds next year. And hopefully, if all went well and the planets lined up and God shined down on you, you'll get a whole different pepper. So what I hopefully just did was a primatali crossed onto a Dorset Naga. I want the genetics of the Dorset Naga because it's such a big plant. And then I want the heat from the primatali. So now let's jump over to my big Dorset Naga, Julian, the one that I have entered into the Dorset Naga Challenge. And we'll take the electric toothbrush and I'll show you real quick how I go around the whole plant and try to manually pollinate, just in case the pollinators aren't keeping up with their job. Now Julian does have a lot of peppers on him already, so the pollinators are definitely doing their job. But in this contest, it's all about the most number of pods. So I want to make sure as many of these flowers are pollinated as possible, and that's where this comes in. Now, one important note, I typically do not touch anywhere in that bottom of the flower to get pollen on this toothbrush. When I do it, I usually touch the top or the stem. Oh, and if that showed up on camera, we got pollen out of that one. And all we're going to do is go around and touch the top and vibrate that flower. And all we're doing is attempting to get that pollen to go from the stamens up inside that pepper down onto the stigma, pollinate it, and create as many peppers on this plant as possible. Because if I have any chance at this competition, I need all those peppers. And that's really all there is to it. I'm going to go around and touch as many of these flowers as I can to try to get them all to produce peppers. And then the last thing I want to touch on, kind of an added bonus, but if you're like me and you grow every year and you're constantly changing and trying to grow super large plants, or you just really like a specific pepper, you want to pick the best pepper on that plant and keep the seeds from that one and keep improving that strain. The seeds from that one are not 100% going to give you the exact same one, but your chances go way up. And we could go into a whole nother world called phenotypes. But let me just show you real quick, because I have some reapers that are ripe. and show you what I'm talking about. Every one of your plants are going to put out different looking peppers. They call it phenotypes. So this is one of my reapers. This is a really common phenotype that I get. So if I want to continue the peppers to look like this one, I'll keep the seeds from this and plant it next year. And my chances of it looking like that are going to be a lot bigger or a lot greater. Down inside here, you'll see if you're looking for that classic tail, this one's growing it right now, then you might keep the seeds from that one and continue that one year after year. So if you want that classic gnarly long tail, Primatali's known for, the Reaper's known for too, then you're going to want to pick one of those peppers to keep the seeds from and carry on the genetics. Oddly enough, the most perfect, super hot looking, picture perfect pepper that I've ever grown was off of a 7-pot bubble gum, which I screwed up and did not grow again this year. I still have the seeds though, so they will be in next year. Okay, it's still early in the morning and I got to get back to all the morning chores in the garden. But I wanted to take a minute and show you how easy cross-pollinating and manually pollinating your pepper plants can be. Don't overthink it. Have fun with it. You're gonna love it. And one thing, don't get discouraged, because if you post a picture of your pepper on Facebook or wherever, you're gonna get that know-it-all on there that are like, that doesn't look like a Carolina Reaper. Trust me, there's many phenotypes to each one. Don't let that discourage you, and you know how the internet is. We've both seen it. Hey, until next time, remember, you don't have to be a prepper to be prepared, and I will see you on the next one.